y'all. It's Jeremy James, the Bourbon Realtor.
Lahannah Bonagofsky.
We're copper and up. Did you hear that? Oh my gosh.
We are not a copper and oak.
We are not.
Please do not scare me like that.
We're Barstools and Bourbon. Today we have, and I have been told I have to enunciate this correctly, the Alan Bishop here on location in French Lick, Indiana, visiting with the wonderful people at Spirits of French Lick. So we'll join you in just a second.
If you guys can't tell, there's obviously a little brandy influence to all of it.
There really is.
So we kind of fancy ourselves as brandy distillers that are primarily making bourbon at this point, I think. So
well, it's those heavy stone fruits up front on almost everything, and that's so. All right, so who's William Dalton, and how does he play?
This one's going to be fun. This is going to be a double preview for you guys. So this is going to be the next bottled bond, but this is also. This particular one is a gift shop release that's going to be out here shortly. So it's a little different from the one that'll be out eventually. So anything you get from the gift shop that's a barrel selection or a small batch is never going to be the same thing that happens with bottled and bond. It's always going to be something that's off profile or something we finished somehow as a preview.
So note that if you want the special stuff, make your way to French Lick.
Yes.
Google Maps will bring you here. If you come from the north,
get behind four carriages.
I came in from Chicago way. There was a couple one-lane roads past some farms that were pretty interesting down through there.
I mean, I live in a town with 5 stoplights, but as they were driving here, like if I'm saying it's a small town, my husband was like, "It's Indiana. It's all farms." He's like, "I thought we were farms. This is all farms." I'm like,
"What we got?"
But it was a really pretty drive.
So Mr. Dalton here is, this is probably the name that I'm most proud to get out there after Maddie Gladden. Maddie Gladden's story needed to be told because she was hidden away by the townspeople of Salem because of her involvement in owning a brothel. So we brought her back. Dalton is almost as interesting, if not more interesting, not from a enthralling life point of view, but because in the history of Indiana distillation, or in the history of distillation in general, you get all these stories about the bourbon barons, right? The people who own things, the people who started things, the people who did all that. But you don't hear about the distillers until modern times. And so there's another product out there, and I'm not going to mention the name of it, that bears the owner's name of the distillery that Mr. Dalton worked at. And then one of the other owners of that distillery, he's very well known in Indiana history, but William Dalton worked at the Daisy Spring Mill Distillery in Lawrence County, Indiana, at Spring Mill State Park for 55 years, running pot stills on wood fire and stirring mash by hand.
Wow.
And nobody ever mentions his name. So we wanted to make sure he had his own product. And so the wheated bourbon fits because Daisy Spring Mill Distillery made a wheated bourbon. That and apple brandy were really their claims to fame, plus basically 100% corn whiskey at that time. What you have in front of you, so this is basically a traditional mash bill, 70% corn, 20% wheat, 10%. We use caramel malt on this again.
Well,
I like it.
This doesn't drink like a wheated bourbon at all. I mean, you can taste it up front, but like you said, those malts just come through, and then that finishing. And I never realized, especially right up until I was halfway through this tournament that we're doing.
He's got me. Look at
that. We won't tell her.
Look, Big Chief needs to make his way up here, the Weeded King.
Yeah, he's the Weeded King. And
this is good.
When I was halfway through the tournament, because I know Minnick was making a big deal about it, about not calling finished bourbons and having the right category. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, whatever, kind of thing. Halfway through the tournament, I realized why. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because a finished bourbon, finished whiskey has a leg up over everything else of same age. And it's not even funny how much of a kickstart that gives it. Yeah. As far as complexity, as far as depth and profile.
It goes from basic to complex at that point instead of just tasting through. There's so many layers to it.
And the other part about it too, and we were very conscientious of this when we finish anything, with the exception of the right way, which we'll talk about here in a little while. But if I'm going to finish something, like when we did Unpretentious, the port barrel finish, and I feel like this should be an absolute rule about finishing bourbon. If you want to finish bourbon and call it bourbon, but you want that barrel in good shape, don't leave that barrel wet.
Yeah.
You know, if you get a port barrel in and there's 7% port still left in that damn barrel, that changes everything,
Yeah.
you know, versus if you have a cured barrel where the port's just in the wood and the bourbon's having a chance to kind of, you know, interact and make out with the port in the barrel a little bit, you know, that's a little different.
So then that's a question that I kind of have, because I have a friend who works in a barrel leasing company, and they're all about, which obviously the integrity of the barrel is important, but I guess I was under the assumption that if it wasn't still like wet, that it was a no-go.
Well, to some extent, from a technical perspective, yes, they'll start to fall apart when they dry out. But there's a difference between there's enough moisture in there to keep it sealed, and I just got a barrel in and it sloshes when I move it back.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you pour your distillate
Right.
in there.
Obviously, it's going to completely change things up.
Right.
Yeah.
And the major offenders are pretty easy to spot when you taste their product. It's not hard to figure out who's doing that, and maybe even adding a couple gallons of something in after too.
I'm smiling because I have
And that's-
just
and that's
popped
a
to my
whole-
head.
That's
gonna-
that whole other violation because, like you said, it's one thing to use the barrel; it's another thing to create a blend.
I wonder if it's the same one we're thinking of. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. But that's what it is, because then you're creating a blend. It's a very small percentage on blend, but it's still a blend.
Yeah. And so the fun part with this is, so this is still a bourbon because it's still new oak, because there's no specification. It has to be new American oak,
Right.
just new oak.
Right.
And then there's a fun little tie-in with a.
Well, it's just double oaked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're just double oaking.
Right.
A wheated bourbon, double oaked with a decent malt. I mean, 18%. I mean, a lot of
It's 10. It's 10.
Oh, is it 10?
Yeah. We just have.
Oh, it's the funky font.
Yeah,
Okay.
funky font. Yeah. But there is a cool little tie-in here, though, with a good distilling friend of mine, Steve Beam. I actually got those Mocha Oak staves from Steve. He had a bunch of them and wasn't using them, and he brought them up here and dropped them
Steve
off.
Beam has
Love
been on the
Steve.
show. Love Steve.
He just shared my post the other day about me looking for a hostess. Thank you for supporting me and my staffing issues, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Steve Beam and Lisa Wicker, I'd not be in this industry legally. So there's
Something to be said for that too.
That's pretty awesome. Some history there.
Well, you're still finishing off. Who was it again? I'm used to it. William Dalton. We're getting far into this now too.
Your pours were just as heavy as my first one.
You know, they didn't feel as heavy.
These are all too, just so you guys know, kind of a cool little story. When we pay tribute to somebody, nobody gets bottles 1 through 3. Nobody in the company. They don't go out to the public. They either go to the cemetery where the people are at as a sign of respect, or they go to the descendants of the people, or they go to a reenactor that plays that character, or they go to the local museum to pay tribute to them.
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
I don't want them haunting me. I don't need that. There's
Yeah.
more than enough stories of Lisa.
Respect the grain,
Yes,
respect
and Maddie
the
Gladden
people.
apparently too. Yeah.
Listen, I'd be okay with it. I don't know. Maddie Gladden.
I'd hang out with Maddie.
Yeah.
Oh, she sounds
that'd
like-
be a fun one to
So
hang out with.
honestly, now that I'm 3 and I can say it even live, I don't care. It's this funny ongoing story with me and my husband. We say I have 7 personalities and he has 0. He's just very quiet and reserved, and I'm the exact opposite. But if you call him at any point in time and be like, "What is your wife's dream?" He's like, "I don't know. She wants to run a brothel." And I've always said that. Like, I really just think it would be so cool. And I have super duper curly hair. So I just envision myself in my obnoxious ass glitter glasses with my big curls running a brothel. I don't know the actual ins and outs of it. I just,
Yeah.
Are you going to do full, what's it called? The
girdle,
the corset?
the corset.
no.
Corset. And the
I like
thing and
tacos, number
and
1,
the
and
thing.
number 2. I've had
Well,
2 kids, which
That's why
resulted
they
in
use
2
the
chains.
corset. Because
2
those
kids,
girls like
2
tacos too.
Look, do we have one? Like,
That's why you ever watch the old westerns and those girls in the corsets look like you're squeezing a can of Pillsbury.
I would so be friends with Maddie. Like, I just want her to give me, like, what are your secrets? Do
Imagine-
we keep our records off books? What do we do?
Imagine if you will, and I've not told you the whole story, Maddie, but I'll tell you after the show, because it's already out there, but I'll tell you guys. But imagine, if you will, that this was happening in the late 1890s in Salem, Indiana, which is in the middle of the Bible Belt, in a railroad town, in a place where it shouldn't have been happening at, with townspeople who the only reason that they let it go on is because they literally did not have any laws about it at the time in town. That's the only reason that it went on for the 6 or 7 years that it existed. And this wasn't low rent stuff. This was, she's dealing with Chicago businessmen. Her girls that she had were educated.
Had all their teeth.
They had all their teeth. She required them to play harpsichord. They had to learn to play harpsichord because it's a house of entertainment. It's not just. It may have ended up, sexually at the end of the night, but that's not all that was happening.
That's an interesting resume pointer. I mean, must be willing to do 15 positions and play harpsichord. Oh, yeah.
Oh, geez, your whole sentence just clicked with me. Cut that, Graham.
Well, there was a barber that talked to the guy that owns the Maddie Gladden house, or did own the Maddie Gladden house until recently, and you guys will appreciate this story. And when the guy who owns it, who did recently own it, yes, okay. He remembered being a kid, his dad going into this barber shop, the barber cutting this guy's hair, and they were talking about, local scandals or whatever. And the guy that was getting his haircut said, "Yeah, I went to Maddie Gladden's." And the barber's like, "No, you didn't. You couldn't afford it. It wasn't for local people. It was for Chicago businessmen, this, that, and the other." He's like, "No, I really did." He goes, "I worked for a whole year and I saved up my money when I was 16 and I went to the Gladden house."
Nice.
And the guy says, "Well, what did that cost you?" And he goes, "It was $100. And he goes, "Well, was it worth it?" And he goes, "Well, what's $100 for a little slice of heaven?" So she clearly knew what was up.
What's 100? I would tell my wife that.
Oh my gosh.
What's $100 for a little slice of heaven?
So as horrible as this is,
checkup.
in our SUV, there's a Simpsons tape like on repeat. I told you I'm raising my kids with enough dysfunction to make them funny. But there's one episode I'm always like trying to hurry up and like turn it down because he said, "And right here was the whorehouse. You could spend 2 months' pay in 3 minutes." And Bart's like, 3 minutes?
What do you do for the other 2.5?
I know. Oh my God. I try to always turn that down before my kids can hear it. I'm like, oh.
There will be questions.
I don't know. Yes.
What do you do for the other 2.5? That's my question.
Right.
Cuddle.
Oh.
Harpsichord.
Oh, touche.
I love it.
A 2-minute little rendition. Oh my gosh.
All right, Brandy. So I have just recently tried, and this is like horrible for me to say, I guess, but my first couple of brandies. It's just been a world I've never delved into. But I had somebody who was like, the way you like whiskey, that's how I am about brandy. He told me he searched for a certain bottle for like 2 years and didn't realize it was a thing, but I'm from Kentucky.
Was it Tony Mancello by chance?
I don't.
She don't know. It's on the shelf probably somewhere.
Right. So apple brandy is what Indiana was famous for. So that 6-county region I mentioned earlier, between 1855 and 1914, there were 155 operational distilleries in that 6-county region. Legal distilleries, not counting the illicit ones. They made what they called Hoosier-style apple brandy, which is what this is. We basically recreated it. We were the first distillery in Indiana to recreate that since Prohibition. It's very much more in the bourbon vein. This is a 2-year-old made from Michigan apple juice, fermented with a brandy yeast. We have done some since then with yeast from some of the old apple brandy distilleries. This does not have a whole lot in common with Calvados. It does not have a whole lot in common with what you might think of as brandy. It is very much more in that bourbon vein. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's heavier, it's more assertive. And it's intended to be. It's intended to remind you that you were drinking something. We will have a bottled and bond version of this out this fall, and we'll probably do an iconoclast 5-year-old at not quite barrel proof because we barrel right off the stillwood brandies, so they're like 135, 140 going into the barrel, but maybe around 120 proof. We'll probably do that this summer. So
this is nice. So walk us through flavor profile. Because I'm a brandy noob.
Yep. So what you're going to find is you're going to get those typical caramel vanilla notes that you get from bourbon.
Yep.
That's going to be there. But you're also going to get like overripe apple, a little apple cobbler, maybe even a little apple crisp, a little cinnamon on the profile. 90 proof, so it's a little lower proof than what we've been drinking. Of course, the bottled bond's coming up. That's going to beef that up a little bit. I think that for me, apple brandy, everyone wants to talk about what's the next spirit after bourbon, and rye is easy, right? That's not hard for a bourbon drinker.
Right.
And then everybody wants to talk rum. I don't think rum is an easy transition for a bourbon drinker unless it's Foursquare, right? That's fairly easy.
Doing some heavy aging on it or something like that, right?
But I think apple brandy is a fairly easy transition. I don't find it coincidental whatsoever that the areas in the United States where you find traditional apple brandy happen to be rye whiskey and bourbon centric.
Yeah.
I think it's an easy enough transition. Old Clifty itself was actually the name of one of the smaller distilleries that was in the Black Forest region. That's a picture of it on the front of it, the distillery in the middle that was there in Cave River
Did you
Valley,
say that, Jeremy?
Campbellsburg. They were making about 20,000 gallons a year, so they weren't huge, but they were considered the premium apple brandy of the time.
Well, you're talking about like the transition. In all honesty, when I saw brandy in our lineup, I was like, oh. I just thought it was going to be like sweet. You know, I don't do sweet things at all. This is a very easy transition.
Yep.
It has the very like green apple-y notes to me up front. And after that, you can.
That's one thing, like Wilderness Trail, their 4-year weeded, to me, tends to have that green apple note right up front, especially on the nose. And a lot of that is just youth at 4 years and whatnot. But this takes that to a different level. It's not necessarily the Granny Smith slice. For me, this is like a Macintosh, like you said, that roasted apple pie flavor where it's cooked down and not nearly as sharp, but those apple notes are still there.
Yeah. Or even you guys having the Kentucky background, I'm sure everybody's grandma made fried apples.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, my mom makes
there it is.
those.
That's where it's hitting. Yep. Just a pile of fried apples, and not the ones from Cracker Barrel, because those are flavorless pieces of something.
Jeremy,
Stop.
we are going to spend one show where you do not man crush on Pat Heiss and say Wilderness
It's not
Trail.
gonna happen.
You cannot do it
It's not
anymore.
going to happen.
And you cannot be mean to someone.
It's not going to happen. They don't pay my bills.
Oh my God.
Cracker Barrel wants to pay my bills. I'll say nice things.
Hey, Pat Heiss, if you're out there and you want to write me a check, I'll sing your praises all day long, brother.
Oh my God.
I respect the hell out of you.
Meanwhile,
But if you want to write a check, I'll love you that much more.
Yeah.
Maddie
Just kidding.
Gladden.
Now we're
Maddie
gonna start.
Gladden.
Let's do it.
Maddie Gladden made whoredom official. I'm right there.
Did he just say the word whoredom
He did.
online? Can we cut this?
It's live.
It's live.
I'm in on that.
It's out there now. Hashtag whoredom.
Hey, we all do it to a certain extent. It's just
How live do
wow.
we want to be?
Yep. I'm
Let's
just
see.
gonna finish this class.
Let's see what we can do.
No,
Let's see what we can do. We're on FaceTime. Hang on, look, Jeremy. We're trying to FaceTime him. Is he going to answer? Hello.
Oh,
What's up?
it's the Pat Heiss. What's up, buddy?
That's my hand right there. Boop, boop.
We're just trying to spin one show where Jeremy does not man crush on you or say Wilderness Trail 87 times.
Did you get the flowers I sent?
Yeah, I did.
Hey, look who joined. Ish.
Hey, you know, look what I got here standing here in my office.
Matt!
What's up, Macaulay?
What's up, buddy?
Oh, my buddy. Hey, I planted a bunch of herbs and shit that I'm gonna come bring you. I planted all kinds of mugwort and arbanus varieties and shit from some heirloom stuff.
Hell yeah.
I have no idea.
Sure,
what he
that's
said.
awesome.
I'm pretty sure that
You
was
can't bring
English.
him those before you take my kids hiking because you promised me this and I was looking forward to a day with no kids. Just
All right, guys, we're gonna let you go. We're trying to actually work. See you.
Hey, we'll talk
Later,
to you
guys.
soon.
I love it. Nice answers your call.
That's awesome. It's like it's like a podcast within a podcast. going on
Absolutely.
here.
And so we're gonna go take the tour and
We got some
right.
Which
Yes. I need a bagel.
Was it Maddie that did this, or like, you know,
Last
really,
minute.
it's just the spirits of this local place, man. If y'all didn't notice when you drive into French Lick in West Baden, it doesn't feel like it should exist in
I'm
Indiana.
smelling myself.
It's like an airlock. There's a darkness here that just it's just. Whew.
Am I the only one who's only happily? You're happily buzzing. I'm only happily there.
I'm good to go. So much so that I just smelled my cleansing water.
So you're high on life. Okay.
So this is the right way. That's where we'll go next. So I'll let you.
All right.
You're the
So
host. You,
so the right way. Apparently, there's a wrong way. So I mean, in my opinion, if you're gonna throw shade, you throw it where it needs to be. So
Jeremy.
where's the right way, and what is that in reference to? I'm not gonna let you off the hook. I mean, not that I think you back off from a fight, but so what's the right way? And
So these labels, these one-off labels are the ones that are fun for us, right? Because I can talk to you guys about history all day long.
Right.
I can go through all that stuff, and it's fun and it's cool and I love it. But these one-offs are where it's really fun at. So They're all supposed to be a little cheeky, a little thumbing your nose at people, a little playing around with the industry in general. That's why we did Unpretentious. We did the right way because we love the guys at Peerless, and they know that. We've talked to them multiple times, and I love John Waddell. I think he's one of the coolest people out there. But they did the Peerless thing with rye whiskey and an absinthe barrel from Copper and Kings, and I used to work at Copper and Kings, so I had to put a little something out there in the water, and they appreciate it. And we love those guys to death. I respect
when she was telling us about it, finishing the absinthe barrel, I was like Peerless?
Yep.
And she was like,
Yes,
yeah.
but it's the right way.
Yeah, too. So what we did is we did a barrel-aged absinthe that we went into New American Oak. And which is, we did a lot of barrel-aged absinthe at the other company. We never went into New American Oak. And I did it as a fun thing. We called Fascination Street. And when I got done with the barrel, I was like, I've got rye whiskey here that's 3 years old. Let's throw that in an absinthe barrel and see what happens. This is what happens. So it's a little tribute to David Lynch. We're big fans of David Lynch movies. Obviously, The Lost Highway. Trying to play off of that thing a little bit, and a little of that darkness coming into it. And,
all right, Google David Lynch
right now.
Oh, Twin Peaks.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. See, Twin Peaks was me in high school. Everybody was watching Twin Peaks, and I wasn't.
I don't watch movies, so Jeremy always has all these references, and I'm like,
She didn't understand the holy hand grenade of Antioch in reference to the Blanton's bottle.
but I don't watch movies, so
Doesn't matter.
I literally
Not
watched
for
John
that
Wick
reference.
because I was forced to, and I saw Blanton's bottle on that, and I was like, oh, okay. But aside from that, if it's a Grey's Anatomy reference, maybe.
This has turned into Mortal Kombat. You guys are getting the early preview of the new Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh my
Pick
gosh.
me,
But
choose me, love me. That was Meredith
It's
Grey.
the holy hand grenade of Antioch. Aren't we born knowing that reference? I mean, really. I mean, the problem is Graham didn't know it either. So that's when I lost hope in an entire generation.
Jeremy, for babies.
This is another one of those examples of how
And it's Alan getting us back on track, ladies and gentlemen. Just so you know.
Listen, me and Christy do Distillers Talk, so I'm used to it. We just, at some point in time, whenever we do Distillers Talk, I'm like, it's 6:56. I haven't eaten supper yet, so
I'm still drinking bourbon.
Okay.
All right. So now that I've side railed you for
you're
for
good.
the right way.
You're good. So this is another one of those previews like the William Dalton guys. So like I said, whenever we run something out before it comes out as bottled and bond, it's never going to be exactly what bottled and bond is. So this is actually our rye whiskey that is based off of the old George Washington mash bill. So it's 60% rye, 35% corn, and 5% malt. But then you have that overlay of that absinthe on top of it. So it's a little preview of the rye, and it gives you a little of that absinthe thing. And my goal has always been that people have this idea of absinthe as just being black licorice, right? So bourbon drinkers don't go towards absinthe, and absinthe drinkers don't go towards bourbon. But there's no reason why there shouldn't be hybrids of bourbons, ryes, absinthe, all those things. This is a Sazerac in a bottle, guys. Rye whiskey in an absinthe barrel. It's a Sazerac.
So it's like the absinthe is very
That's what I would. That classic rye flavor.
Right
to me, the absinthe is very upfront, in your face, but then it definitely molds right on into the rye, which is good.
That's a
I like
black,
the black
jelly
licorice.
belly jelly
I
bean.
have destroyed 3.5 bottles of that, I believe. So
That's the finish on that is a black jelly belly jelly bean. After you've chewed it and then just dropped it down and just let that set.
On Halloween, after I got home and went through, I was just finishing his story.
That's exactly right.
Did your grandmas ever make macadamia nut cookies and use a little bit of
My
anise
grandma-
in them?
My grandmother's crazy.
That's what we were.
Yes,
after.
that anise flavoring in general. I used to have it wasn't my actual grandmother. This lady like her used to make these cookies for me all the time, and that was my absolute favorite. It has that licorice flavor.
Just that slight
It just
little-
barely, it's barely there.
Yep.
And I'm a big licorice fan.
Me too.
And black licorice, not Twizzlers, because that's not licorice. But I'm the one in my family that eats the black jelly beans. And so that's nice. But it's right. You're right. It starts very, very bourbony up front. And it's just that star anise flavor just really just permeates more so than I would figure.
See, I guess we're opposite. I felt like that it was more of the absinthe up front.
See, this is why
That's because you're wrong.
That's why these one-offs are fun. Is because I like getting bourbon people and putting these odd things in front of them. So One thing we didn't get into because we don't have it bottled yet, but you guys will have to come back for at some point, is we have a buckwheat/Kasha bourbon.
I can drink out of barrels. I'm not shy.
And I like putting that in front of bourbon people because it's 50-50. We've never had anybody ever taste it yet and go,
And just agree.
it's always, that's really, really good or not my thing.
If I said, well, when we come back, if I'm like, it's different.
We
then
love
you
that.
already know.
That's how we learn. That's how we learn. Well, I will tell you this, with alternative grains, right? So every bourbon distiller out there, whether they realize it or they don't, from a quality control standpoint, is distilling a little bit of buckwheat into every bourbon that you've ever drank, because buckwheat is such an endemic weed all over the United States that there's no way that you're not.
That's something in
Right.
Yep.
Interesting.
I'm from such a small town that one of the prominent men in our town is named Buckwheat. Fun side point.
You mean the mayor? You mean
no,
the mayor?
no, the mayor's not named Buckwheat, but it's another gentleman.
Wasn't it? Or was he councilman?
You're getting there.
I think he's a
Yeah.
councilman or
Mm-hmm.
magistrate or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny when you go to vote and you see buckwheat.
It says
on the
Buckwheat.
thing.
Does it say?
We had I'm from such a small town that we had an unofficial mayor because it's not a position, and his name was Buster Crockett,
Oh.
which is the most
That's the
amazing
coolest
name.
thing. From 1842, Buster
Right.
Crockett. I mean,
Frontline World War II and frontline Korean War
Buster.
combat infantry badge.
call yourself whatever you want at that point.
Was jumping out of airplanes in his 80s.
Alan, thank you so much.
I'm impressed.
Serious
Like,
stuff.
I'm genuinely impressed, especially for something, everybody knows the OGs. We've been to
Right.
distilleries that are having their name out there, but I guess with it being in Indiana, I've heard of it,
Right.
but it was never on my radar. But when I tell you that this will now be on my radar, it will be in
Well, I appreciate
every
it.
restaurant I have because we're opening a new one
Nice.
and things like that.
She hates me. She hates me. She's literally opening a restaurant within my wheelhouse of my diet, and you can tell I have no discipline except for bigger plates.
Jeremy, I
We're
have to
in a
pay
place
for
with an Italian restaurant, guys. So I
that's what we're opening.
feel you. Right.
That's exactly what we're
Yeah.
opening. And that's the thing. I'm
Pasta
like,
and meat.
jeez, Pete, I'm gonna have to do something before we start eating pasta.
Where
So
do you-
we've got Heritage Distilling, our Heritage distribution. I'll get that out in a minute in Kentucky. So those guys can hook you up down there for sure.
Well, I know I saw you at Total Wine. I saw Maddie Gladden at Total Wine in Lexington. I have not seen Lee Sinclair in the wild yet.
It's been sold out ever since that Minnick thing. I mean, we
Gotcha.
literally just put it in a bottle. So we do this thing too.
Is there any in the gift shop?
There's Iconoclast in the gift shop. I don't think this is out yet, but if this is from, this is from the most recent bottling, they can actually put it out right now. It's good to go. We treat it like wine. So spirits, when they go in the bottle, they go through bottle shock, and they need a couple weeks to sit. So, but that was on point. for
Just so
where-
you know,
Wow,
I
over here, like-
have a Lee Sinclair, so that means I got it before the Minnick thing.
you
So,
got the
like I
first
said,
bottling.
Well, I left my husband at the hotel with the kids, so I should probably pop up with something he's gonna love.
Probably. Alan, thank you so
No,
much.
thank you guys.
Really do appreciate it. Lahannah, any parting words?
No, I mean, I'm a huge fan, so I want to say it's very hard
How
on
do
the
you pick
favorite
a
because I was here with the William Dalton. And what's funny is, like, that's the thing. I always lean towards high rise and the higher proof. We're sitting at 100 and we're wheat. So
Yep.
there goes that. And
But finish so that you can.
this here, the Maddie Gladden, not only do I want to be her and be her friend, this
Graham,
whiskey
get on
is
Photoshop quick.
all around a very phenomenal one.
Yeah, that Maddie Gladden for me,
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And the barrel strength
Here, I'm here for
is
you.
is awesome. We'll do a.
You guys are taking this one with you, by the way. So.
Oh,
Jeremy,
it's
we're
funny
rock,
'cause
paper, scissors.
it's because
It
we
is
don't live
rock,
together.
paper,
So
scissors.
so we're gonna. One of us is splitting. Alan,
You guys know the old Pochine salute?
I have no idea, but
No, show us.
Jess Ann taught us that when you clink glasses, you have to make eye contact. Otherwise,
Otherwise, you have a bad sex
the,
life.
the problem is there's only 3 of us. So
I'm closing my eyes. I'm fine.
So this is the old Pochine salute. So and you have to repeat it as I say it. So this is those that wish us well,
this
This is those that
who
wish us well.
and those who don't may go to hell.
And those who
that
don't, they
may
go to hell.
And all at once.
That's a way to end a show, guys. Thanks from Barstools and Bourbon.
I'm Jeremy James, the Bourbon Realtor.
I'm
See you all.
Lahannah Bonagofsky-ish.
Shocking. see you all next time. Bye bye.
Later.